Hi there. It seems like the plutonomy is really asserting itself. You see pictures like the rich and the rest, and you get guys coming up giving instructions to those that would like to be part of this plutonomy group, to this group of rich people that will keep the rest of the country poor and divided, because they control the media, and that will try to keep all the energy for themselves. It's a fatalist group. It's a group of eco-fatalists, you can say. They really want to kill themselves. You can also be more specific and say it's the baby boomer generation, more or less, and the second generation after that really doesn't care about the rest. And this has been gone on for 50 years. The people that deny climate change, global warming, that simply want to keep using the fossil fuels because it's so easy, and that are now finding that it's not easy to use these fossil fuels actually. It is actually very dangerous, but they still don't care because they know they're going to be dead in about 20 years or something like that. They don't want to be bothered. And it appears that the whole movement is that there's a consolidation going on right now. So the Plutonomist appears to have won, and now it's just a matter of convincing other people to adapt all the dirty technologies and pretend they're clean. Because that's, let's say, the safer of the two options. If you pit it against fighting against clean or fighting for green, then you might as well, let's say, for example, you have the Bloom box, which is a gas catalyst system where you have a fuel cell based on natural gas, which is of course as polluting as natural gas in a power plant, but it is more efficient. The system is more efficient than, I'm not sure how much more efficient, but it's slightly more efficient. It's presented as a clean fuel, clean energy. It doesn't have any emissions, which are complete lies. Now, people simply try to adopt that technology, and then they can feel good about their green credentials. They still use natural gas, and actually they increase the demand for natural gas, which then gives a legitimate reason to do the fracking, which in the end will basically make whole regions uninhabitable or very dangerous, because you never know if you're going to walk into a carbon dioxide well or a methane well where you will suffocate, or that you just get organ damage from drinking the polluted water, as people do. And in that sense, it's just, and that's the clear division. You have the cheap riches, which are based on fossil fuels, relatively cheap, that are pitted against the people that want to, let's say, create a future for each other and create a society for each other. These people are not interested in that. They think they can buy everything, and of course, if you keep people desperate, then they can always serve you. Now, if you help them to become stronger, then you cannot make them a slave easily. So that's the whole, basically the whole mentality. And the more you look for alternative energy sources that are not patentable, like the Bloom box. That technology has been around since 1930. I've been looking into this. So a natural gas fuel cell. You also have ammonia fuel cells that I'm going to look into next and write a piece about, because that's brilliant, because then you can use the ammonia in manure and all kinds of, let's say, organic waste to make electricity directly. You actually have a design for an eco fuel cell, which use an ecological environment, so with plants growing, but integrates in that whole cycle a fuel cell that uses probably ammonia or something like that, or gas from a biogas gasifier, or not a gasifier but a biogas installation. Just like this Bloom box, it can also run on biogas. Of course, that's not what it's going to do, because because there's fracking. You can let's say beat the gas out of the ground, and that works. You shouldn't do that because it kills people, but who cares? It's only for the rich people that's going to be able to afford the gas anyway. So now, and the deception is complete, because the Bloom box. So this company, I guess it was Amazon, they got the Bloom box, and they say, well, it's brilliant. Already in the first month, it already saved us $100,000 in our electricity bills. Yes. So what happened to your gas bills? See, they really assume people are like plants. They're so stupid. And that's what they make sure that is actually the case, because they're the media. They can do that. They addict you because they draw your attention, and then they feed you shit, making everybody a copophragist. And it's interesting if you want to look into the philosophy of climate change or the knowledge of climate change, and the consensus is very old. But the consensus about the wrongs of the consumer society is also very old. And it's funny because there's two movies that are about corporatism and a consumer society that are standard misinterpreted. One of them is Catch-22, which is about corporatism, and is a complete lesson in how corporatism completely, how people have a preference to be delusional, and how corporations have a propensity or a tendency to corrupt everything until everybody suffers underneath it. And that's one. That's Catch-22 is always a movie you should watch. And the other one is, I believe it's Marquis de Sade, or it's a movie by Pasolini with horrible scenes in it about eating shit and stuff like that. But what he tries to demonstrate is his philosophy about the consumer society. That people are kept infantile, childlike, and that they are then fed the shit. Of course, in the movie of Pasolini, everybody's eating chocolate, and sadly, of course, that this movie has also a very sexual tendency. But that's because he believed that the underlying motivation was perversion. Just like I believe Naomi Klein or Naomi Wolf believed that the underlying motivation of the people that built Abu Ghraib and is sexual perversion, because they wanted to have some way to basically realize their desire to see Muslims violated by dogs and stuff like that, and have pictures of that. And then they created the whole war and the prison to accomplish that. I think that might, the way I look at it is that a person that can realize every motivation that he has, and you have a number of them. Of course, you need to drink, you need to eat, you need shelter, you need a relationship, you need sex. So basically, let's not beat around the bush. That can basically put all those motivations to work in what he's trying to accomplish, will be more motivated than anybody else. And so, but that's insanity, of course, and it is perversion, and it is being empowered by the structures that have been built, like a government, a military, a Pentagon, a country like the USA that behaves as one entity, and those type of empowering institutions that people at the top basically cannot handle. That's what I'm more or less saying. Well, let's stop all that and let's move to a more localized autonomy, and let's not try to be dependent on each other. So let's not, as a whole of the US, be dependent on one Pentagon. Let's not, as a whole of the US, be dependent on one government, and let's not even allow or enable them to write the rules, because you know that people cannot really handle that type of aggregation. In the US, English, you have the word aggregate and aggregation, which means that you kind of start treating people like statistics and start thinking about huge numbers of populations, and then you can start saying, well, if 300 million Americans exist and 5 million die because we have introduced this medicine, but 10 million have a slightly better life and are a little bit happier, then maybe it's worth doing it. At the moment that somebody can say those kind of things, you know that the system is wrong, that the whole situation has become way too dangerous for one idiot to manage, and you shouldn't allow that to happen. There was another. I have to prepare my videos a little bit better, because then I can talk about other examples of it. I remember it. It is this New York Times writer. I believe he actually got the Pulitzer Prize. He believes that the top of the U.S. Army is run by a couple of people that believe that they should be on a crusade against the Muslims, that they are the Maltese knights, or the Knights of Malta, that they're basically protecting Christianity against the Muslims. It's the same philosophy as is in the neocon philosophy. And the funny thing is that it should be considered amazing that people with this philosophy achieve these positions. But I think the key to that, to understanding how that works, is that it's an enormous secret. So you don't talk about it, but you do organize together. And at the other hand, it is disqualified. It is seen as a, let's say, a harmless conceptual delusion. Oh, you think you're on a crusade? Well, very well. And at the same time, it is a it makes you extremely unique in your own identity, which of course means that what other people say doesn't really matter to you. Just like newborn Christians can be very, very arrogant because they have their newborn Christian identity. And that's dangerous, because then because in my previous videos I talked about the fact that superiority and inferiority are basically the source of all evil, that the Nazis felt superior and made other people feel inferior, and that basically that relationship divides people and turns them into different tribes, and then one can kill the other without a problem, because that's a natural thing to kill and to protect yourself against enemy tribes. It's just our mind works like that. So once you get the superiority complex, you also get the merciless and the immorality that comes with treating people that are essentially the same and that you can essentially share with as enemies that you can simply destroy and don't even have to think about it. And you see that in the media, it is pushed a little bit, which worries me, because now you get news items that say, well, beautiful people are more intelligent. So attractive people are more intelligent than unattractive people. And of course that sticks with a lot of people. It's a nice discussion point. I'm talking about it right now. And it's not very helpful, because it's certainly not true, because a lot of the top 2% in universities, people there, they are not all attractive. They might be more intelligent, but it's also about the ambition that you have in your life. So you might not be the smartest person on earth. Plus it's a statistic. It's a statistic, which might only be let's say 1% significant. So it might be that in 51% of the cases it's the case that the more attractive people are more intelligent. But in the minds of people it becomes as valid, for instance, as people that doubt climate change, which are complete morons and liars and don't know what they're talking about. What that does is also it creates a preference for more attractive people in the working place immediately, unconsciously almost, and there already is that preference. It also creates a sense of superiority in more attractive people against people that are less attractive, which is dangerous, because they're going to be pitted against each other. But this does match the whole fascist tendency in the US that you have, where you have all the presenters on television being blonde, weet je wel, Nordic type, you could almost say Aryan, and the whole Plutonomy, which is about a superior group, which has control over things and is living a comfortable life because they all help each other, and they all own basically the money supply, with which they keep the rest of the country enslaved. And the best measure against it, again, is to start to isolate, not so much isolate, but start to become self-sufficient and independent. Like the last thing I'll say, because this again is a long video, but the states are looking for ways to default on their debt because they cannot pay it. That's that type of news headline. It's not yet, but it's almost saying, well, these crooked states are trying to default on their debt, and that's a bad thing. Of course, it's not a bad thing; it's a natural thing. It used to be a normal thing for years and years and years. If you put somebody in debt, and he cannot repay it, then that's it. You don't get your money back, and you just made a wrong decision to put that person in debt. These days it works like you put somebody in debt, and he gets bound by that forever. And so you almost go like, these states, they refuse to be enslaved. How immoral of them. It's all about how you present things, and also all about what the general strategy is, which strategy is supported. And you never know, at least in the case of these states, we know for sure that they have been put into their position by the same people that lent them the money. They knew that they wouldn't be able to pay back, and that was the whole intention of it, to create slave states. And one example of a light at the end of the tunnel is, of course, Ireland, that's now printing its own money. So it doesn't have to go to the European Central Bank to get euros. It is a danger for the Eurozone, and they might become an independent country with hyperinflation. But they won't be slaves. So agoracentrism, once again. And if you like the idea, send me a message. And if you want to suggest some website that is of the same spirit, then please let me know. Thanks for listening.